Okay, so like I say, my nice bunch of third years doing their contemporary trends in management practice class, and we're all kind of at this stage trying to feel out this strange relationship between the ideas that organisations have about where would we go next, and the realities of doing that type of stuff, the sort of the things that managers do at the end of the stuff. And I thought the reason for calling you in is obviously background working for one of the big consulting organisations, and I thought who could be better to tell me, give us some kind of insight, just a little bit of insight about what the process of translating those ideas from general big strategic ideas into the mundanities of what everybody looks at or what everybody does in the organisation. So can I just start by, I said thank you, done that. Can I just start with, why don't you just start telling us a little bit about what's new and exciting in your life just now?
Yeah, why not? As I said, thank you for having me and allowing me to talk a little bit about what I do and how ideas get translated into actual work for really big consulting firms. Now, what do I do and what's exciting now? So I work for one of the big consulting firms. It's one of the big fours, and there's a lot that goes on into these organizations. They are they're not technically research-based firms. They are core consulting firms where we build on ideas that has been created somewhere. But we innovate on top of that, and we see how we can offer products or services to our potential clients, which will make them more efficient in their businesses, or which will enable clients to make more money for themselves, if I put it in plain consulting terms.
Indeed, yeah.
So how do we do that actually? If I pick an example and maybe talk through that from my perspective, and then I kind of I can layer it with generic terms that would be probably more helpful. So let's talk about what's the biggest thing right now. Disruption through technology is probably one of the biggest things we keep hearing these days. Obviously, technology has been a part of our lives for as long as I think 100 years now or more than that.
At least that, yes.
Yes. But now the way it's disrupting businesses is changing quite a lot. So it's penetrating the way we live, we eat, we travel, we think, we bank, etc. And that's one of the things that's probably originated in the last 15 years more so. Let's think about just the way we travel these days. If you look at big hotel companies, Airbnb has now kind of gone far ahead in the league, and they are the biggest hotel companies in the world today. They don't own a single piece of the property, but still they are the biggest hotel organizations now. Now, we as a consulting firm, what do we do? What do we do to understand what's happening out there in the market? There's a bit of thinking that goes behind what we want to offer to our clients. We understand and scan the market. Now, what do I mean by understanding and scanning the market? People will tell you everything is fast-paced, you need to keep learning, you need to keep thinking about things. But what does that actually mean? It means having that curiosity to learn, making sure you're thinking about what's changing. And if you spot something, bringing that to the forum, to the organization, and saying that we need to think about this. And we have people with interests within the firm who can do some amount of research and start innovating on top of that idea. So somewhere in some university or some research-based firm, someone has done an incredible work creating this firm called Airbnb, and they have produced a fantastic flashing new platform which can take hotel bookings and can navigate people in different directions and can give experiences as well. For instance, snorkeling or diving, etc. But what do? We try and see what additional things would clients want. Let's see, okay, you're booking through Airbnb. What are the controls in place which will enable you to efficiently safeguard the payments that you're making through that platform? Or how do you make sure that the experiences clients are getting are up to the mark, or that's something they want? Is everything being taken care of by an Airbnb? Not really, no. So we think over and above what is being offered as by the product company or by that idea, and we build on top of that, if that makes sense. So we gather the idea of what's happening, what's changing in the market. We consultants need to have that curiosity to go ahead, learn, think, and put it in a kind of piece of paper. It's never a blank sheet of paper, if I put it that way. It's always, we start probably from an idea, unless we're just innovating and we're creating a work product for ourselves. Then we take ideas to the selling batch, we call it. So we have, the way our consulting firms work is there are doers, there are managers, and there are sellers or people who bring business to the firm. Now managers are a hybrid of being people who go out to the market and reach out to potential buyers, as well as help with the delivery. But the top section of these firms who are technically partners of the firm, they go out and sell the ideas. Now I've been fortunate enough to be involved in a lot of the selling, so I do go out and take the ideas directly to the client and tell them that this is what is changing in the market, you need to think about these things, and potentially we can have a conversation at a later date to talk you through the proposition. Now when that possibility emerges of what's changing, and then we talk about how we can start inventing, and that's internal again, that's internal to a consulting firm. We will have people within the firm who will be able to innovate, who will be able to think about the different packages or different solutions we can offer to clients, which can make things more financially profitable for us as consulting organizations. And once we have a pool of people working on those ideas, we start taking the ideas out to the clients. And that's where we try and land whether this is something of interest to them, this is something they want to understand a little bit more about. And we invite clients over for things like briefings, evening briefings or breakfast briefings, when we want to land an idea. So something like, let's pick another example, something like fintechs, the way financial trading or financial dealings were done in the past. It's gradually shifting over to technology transactions. It's going to be fully fintech based financial banking, and in a couple of years time, that's what prediction 2015, you'll probably have very few banks there'll be very few banks who actually have branches. That's what the kind of analysis says. So fintech is a big wing for us in consulting firms. We take ideas to our clients, try and land it, and see what are the areas they would like us to invest in and research. And that's research, actual research, because we need to it's still a developing proposition, and we are pioneers in that space. We want to understand how clients want us to give them that comfort, and what sort of services they would want to see. And based on their ideas, thoughts, we develop our proposition or our products. So that's a journey from possibility to invention, how you were calling it a couple of minutes ago, to finally landing it as a work package. So when we've developed a product, we do take it out to the clients and try and give them comfort around how it works, how we think they can benefit from it. There's a series of work that's done to prior to selling, if we call it that way. So every organization have their own needs, demands, and they want to probably build an efficiency somewhere, or they want to change the way they're doing the work somewhere. They might use our products or services to be able to do that. So we see what's important for them, because as consulting firms, we are here to service them in a way which will help them. So we want to make sure that they are happy. So transparency and their need is very, very important for us. At the same time, that speed of innovation is important for us to be able to constantly offer them things from that idea, but from the idea perspective. So if we start from something like a disruption in travel industry, then through to going out to clients and saying, what else would you want in this space? We are thinking about putting controls in place from payments point of view, from experience management point of view, and then we gauge interest in the market, and then we go back and innovate. And you can call us a kind of way of translating the idea into practice. So we take ideas, we innovate on top of that, and we take products or solutions back to the market. And once client or a range of organizations tell us what they need, we go back, we innovate, and then we push out the solutions. And that's how things work in practice.
It's really interesting because it's almost you can see that interrelationship between the invention, the fresh and the new, and actually the value that you're adding into that almost immediately by saying, okay, so what would that mean? It's almost that immediately, that bit of going, there's an idea, what does that mean? You know, it's like that jump almost immediately, because I mean the world is full of those types of stories of the fella who had MySpace walking into EMI and just getting 5 minutes with them, and they're going, they didn't do that because they can't see the sense of it. They can see it's revolutionary, but they can't do that bit of going, so that's something we should be doing. You know, they don't get that.
Exactly.
You know, it's so you have to have done something of that degree of translation work.
Absolutely.
I mean, you legitimate, you know, the Big Four legitimate those ideas simply by the fact that you're saying them. But it doesn't, like, you know, the first thing in a manager's head is often to go, so what does that look like? What does it mean? What would the implications be?
Yes, exactly.
So to have it legitimated by that Big Four that comes along and goes, well, this is something we're looking at, let's have a discussion about it. They're in a different position of going, so it's something we should look at. And then that conversation starts about going, so what about, how does it work, where does it fit?
That's possible.
So as you've moved forward, particularly looking at solutions and packages, you start to have that in anticipation of that conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So as you correctly kind of articulated, when we have ideas and we take it, we try and socialize it in a way, we try and see what can work in the market, what is important for them, and then we start putting ideas into practice, as in, okay, this is potentially of interest, maybe we develop this a little more, or we innovate in a completely different space, don't even think about what we started with. So the ideas can go in different directions based on consensus from clients. So our consulting firms are heavily client focused because our business is all about catering to or responding to requests from various organizations, and so the solutions are often, and it's probably one of the greatest barriers often to innovation, is demand. Often organizations don't really know what they want. They have an idea that they want to build efficiency, but they don't really know how efficiency can be. How can you achieve efficiency for a particular stream of work? So there's a fine line between the two, and it's for us to navigate that thinking. We talk about emerging trends, technologies, and to a degree it's a responsibility on our shoulders where we need to coach them and talk to them about various things that's appearing in the horizon. And coming back to the point of how do you really do that? How do you really gauge that? So you have to be interested in what's happening in the market and in a certain industry. So our organizations are structured based on industries, for instance, hotel industry, financial industry, or specifically focusing on insurance, let's say, or specifically focusing on medical facilities. Within medical, there might be several other different things. So we have experts who are just scanning industry at all times, and we encourage our consultants to think in a way where you are starting to scan and you see what's there, you talk to your network about that. And then coming back to the point of what's important in the space, networking is probably very, very important. You have to think, you have to talk to people about this. You don't have to know everything in our space, but the ability to have a confident conversation with someone, and at least demonstrating that you're interested and you have heard about something, you've read a bit about something, and you're there to have an intelligent conversation with someone, even if it's like asking stupid questions like, oh, what does that mean? And it's very important to start asking those questions. I've been in client situations where I've sat there, I have explored an idea, and I've told them that this is, I think, what you need, and they've given me certain things which I had no idea about, but it was related to the initial idea, and I had to ask them that, what do you mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. And they actually appreciated the fact that although I don't know the idea, but I don't know what certain terms mean in their firm, and I ask stupid questions. That shows your ability to curiously ask, at the same time making sure that you're scanning, you're reading, and you try to develop or propositions for
Quite so,
customers.
yeah.
and that
No, I think there's an awful lot to be said of that,
Yes.
because every organisation, even if it's a familiar term, it will have evolved and changed. They'll be talking about a different thing from the way that you understand it. So when you get that sense of going, can I just check what do we mean by that
Exactly.
term? It's I hugely appreciate it. Except when you're on the 20th time and you're sitting there going, no, we're getting tired of this. But to have a conversation and to be actively listening to it and
Yes.
engaging in it, I find really interesting.
This is very important, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask, because obviously we talked about this, and the first part of the conversation was really about that seller activity. But does that end when you've got a package? If you get a package of work and you move within the organisation, is that it? Have we sold it? That's what the organisation's getting.
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. So what happens when you come up with an idea and you actually translate it to being a proper solution for a customer, and you take it out to the market? So selling doesn't stop when you take it to the market. So that's when it actually begins. So you've had an idea, or you've built on an idea from the market. You've started developing solutions. There's a solution now which you can take out to your customers. You start approaching. We never do, consulting firms, specifically Big Fours, never do cold selling. We are more of a knowledge-based organisation where we push out thought leadership. So we say, this is happening in the market. This is something you might be interested in. If you are, we are happy to have a conversation. And this I'm only talking about new services, not existing. So there's an existing portfolio of work. For instance, Big Fours are kind of always used to doing audit work. So that's their activities that they do day in, day out. But
quite so, and there's a big Chinese wall between us. You're not allowed to talk about that.
We're allowed. When you go into that space of innovation, you're always allowed to take it out, go and talk to people. They come and attend breakfast briefings or evening sessions, and they hear about ideas, and then you finally end up in situations where you start getting a lot of interest, and interests often turn into engagements, work, projects, different ways of calling it, and that's when you actually put that solution at test. So is it going to actually give what the client wants? And then comes the big job of understanding or blending into the client culture and seeing what is right for them. So a solution can be a flashy solution sitting somewhere on top of a shelf and can create, or it can change the way you're doing business. But does it always work for clients? No, not really, no. So you have to change, chop, tweak, or innovate on top of that to make it aligned to your client needs.
Yeah.
So it's very complicated in a way, because the job never finishes when you've developed a work package.
No, because effectively the client shifts at that stage, isn't it? Because initially you're selling to those budget holders, those the decision makers at that level, and then you wander into an organisation and you're faced with somebody that you're going to say, I'm going to digitally transform your work, and they go, that's nice.
Yes.
Do you know what I do?
So the decision being taken at a sponsor level, to a middle management level, to people who actually work on the ground. So it's a very interesting kind of journey or transformation, and you see perspectives. People on the ground, middle management, really know what's happening within the organisation, and a lot of things change when you penetrate and you see how the solution needs to be catered to really make it beneficial for the firm or for the client. So there's an element of thinking that has to be done in the background. There's an element of relationship building that we need to ensure is happening somewhere. So we go by certain principles, right? So we have to have our planning, which is watertight. That's something which is internal to a consulting firm. We have to have relationship management, people within our firm. So for instance, if I am at a manager level delivering a piece of work, I am earmarked to do relationship management with certain people within the client side. So as a sponsor, so for instance from our side, if a partner is a sponsor of the program, then the partner is earmarked to do the relationship management with the sponsors from the client organization. So we are earmarked to ensure we're keeping constantly in touch, we're constantly taking feedback, we're constantly working through that to be able to make the service as efficient as possible and as beneficial as possible. And in terms of taking it to people who are delivering on the ground, we try and penetrate the culture of the organization we're working for. So probably one of the very important things for us as a firm is making sure we have a workforce who are able to think with diverse hats
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
Now, but what do I mean by that? Our teams are hugely diverse, which is very beneficial for us. By diversity, I mean male-female ratio, having different people from different parts of the world, the ability to translate what it means to be a working parent, how flexible you have to be to accommodate their hours. So we ensure our teams are really, really diverse, and to have that intelligent conversation from a diversity perspective with the client, and they really appreciate that. So we have that interlock in various stages to be able to anticipate and correctly predict what the client wants. And then service is secondary, relationship management is key.
It's primary, yeah.
So even if you get something wrong and your relationship is rock solid, you can fix it. And the aim is to make things work for them. So we need to understand them before we can make anything work for them. So as I said, that's just the building, the solution. Second stage is understand what they want, change in shop, and then start rolling it out.
And that must start to become quite fluid, because you can't, you start with your solution, your proposition at the top end, but by the time you get to the bottom, there's a transformation, there's a bit of disciplining people, of educating them towards what you think the client's been asked for, or what you've been asked to do.
Yep.
But latter you must also get some pushback, not pushback in the terms of, old language resistance, but in terms of the realization of going, it works, but not the way that we expected it. So do you end up with is it a two-way flow? How do you
That's actually
get back to your sponsors?
Very good question and thought, because our services are never set in stone. So we always ensure that it's agile way of working. Now, agile is a strange term, right? So we can interpret it very differently for different organizations. But what I mean by it is we constantly take feedback and develop, make sure that it works for the next organization, and if we have got a very good feedback from someone, we incorporate it so that it works for someone else. And that feedback loop is very critical for us. So let's pick a product which we have recently launched. And I'm probably not going to go into the details, but there's a working forum every 3 weeks where we go back and look at the clients we're working for and have they fed back anything, and take the feedback, have an action for the core group to go back and update the model based on what the client has said, and then take it out to the partners to be able to review, sense check from a quality perspective, and then take it back out to the market, saying, oh, we have changed something, there's a flashy new product again.
Yeah.
So that's constant.
No, that's really interesting, because the things, you said agile, and I've got a little bit of exposure from that one, and these poor people are going to look at it at one stage in a few weeks' time. But retrospectives are one of those things that they're very hot on, technique-wise. Actually, what they do with it and how it actually turns into actionable points is deeply freaking questionable. They are nobody's, because they're very delivery focused. The project teams, they become delivery focused. So actually, to hear the way the sort of that reflexiveness of being able to go, no, it really matters, because although this is a new and will be a unique implementation here, actually that came in with a set of language, a set of restrictions of what it could possibly do, and other things it could that have emerged in it. So to hear that, refining it as we go along is something that you don't necessarily hear.
Yeah, but I think this is one of the principles that we work with. So the way our models, product development or service development model works is constant uplift of the model. So there'll be iteration 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and it's very, again, agile is very debatable. So you technically don't strictly follow agile, but there's elements of it that we pick from that model, like incremental development of that model based on feedback. So and trust me, things that we have made about 10 years back, we're still developing it. So we're still putting something in place. With the regulations changing, we keep upgrading it. Things work differently. For instance, again, I'll probably give a very example from a financial point of view. It might not work for everyone, but with regulations like GDPR. I'm not sure if everyone knows it's a data protection regulation coming in and launching in May, which is going to protect customer data in a way that we've always wanted, i.e. it gives more power back to the customers, and it's applicable to everyone. Every person should be aware of it, because you are now eligible to know how your data has been handled by every organization, whether it's a Tesco or a bank or it's a random travel company. You're now eligible to know that. With that coming in place, a lot of other kind of services are being disrupted, so we are having to go back to all the different work products that we had and update those work products based on these new regulations. And clients are really interested in understanding how these regulations will impact their ways of working, and we are refreshing everything, and it's an opportunity for us, in a good or a bad way, for us to refresh our services and take it back.
And I think they've got good reason to be interested. I've been saying for the last couple of years that I really think that's the next PPI is data misuse.
Yes,
that is going to be at some point.
Absolutely.
Somebody will kick in the litigation around that. Sorry for those. It was me getting excited about the things I've been saying. So let's. That sounds like I'm always impressed when I do these conversations of just going, wow, listen, look at somebody else's world. It's really interesting. What would you say? Just thinking about my audience. What kind of if you were there, what kind of skill set does that call upon? What kind of people do well in your organisation?
That's another very good question, because as I was mentioning a couple of minutes earlier, that the skill set is the skills we are looking for is changing dramatically. Previously, employers, or at least in consulting firms, used to ask for people who can do well in teams, who have a problem-solving capability, etc. I'm just quoting a few competency-based skills. The expectation of having that is still there, but what takes precedence is we have started looking at new ways of working, as in, how curious are you? Are you asking the right questions? Are you thinking about things that's there in the market? Are you able to have that conversation, even if it's asking, oh, I didn't get that, what do you mean? So curiosity is one of the very, very key elements of the new ways of working as we budget in our firm. The next thing is ability to adapt very, very quickly, because nothing is remaining constant. There's constant change, and as I discussed and as I was touching on various points of disruption through technology, things will not remain the same in a couple of years' time. There's a research which says by 2050 you're going to have 70% of cars which will be driverless. So can you imagine the disruption it will bring to the car industry? So it will change the way we drive, it will change the way we commute. So that's the pace of innovation, and so we all are expected to adapt and be very quick at adapting, and that's demonstrable adaptation, and not just kind of, oh yes, I can adapt and I am flexible.
Oh yes, I'm flexible. Yeah. I was flexible as give me a job and I'll be very flexible. Then honestly, I will.
The other very key thing is having a diverse mindset. Now, I was touching on that earlier as well. Diversity is being able to embrace differences, and also people being able to talk consciously about unconscious levels of biases. So we want people who understand what diverse thinking is, and again, going back to the point of demonstration element is probably very, very important. Because we are consulting firms, right? So we will always look at what people tell us through their words, through their body language, and it's an interview or it's an assessment center where we assess potential graduates or potential consultants, senior consultants or managers at a certain level, and we expect them to be able to demonstrate that to us so that we can be assured that they can demonstrate the same to the clients. And the other very important thing is ability to creatively think. Now, what does that mean? Not like innovating all the time. Not everyone is an innovator. I badge myself as a person who can. I'm not probably a very innovative person, but I am a creative thinker in a way that I can think about things very differently, and that difference is what we expect people to bring to the table. We want different people to voice different ideas so that we can have a list of ideas and we can select what is probably going to work the best for the client. What is going to work best for client A might not work best for client B.
Exactly,
so we
yeah.
have a raft of ideas which we can select from, and that's what we want, that difference in thinking. It's just a few points.
Just a few points. It's a good one.
Well, yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much. That's been just an amazing amount of time. I must admit that I really enjoy doing these ones. I hope the students get as much from me, but I really, really, really enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I hope that this will give them a flavour of from what you've been trying to communicate to them as well.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for confirming a few points. I'll pay you later.
Thank you.